Wife Material Podcast. Can you be pro-choice and still be a wife? Short answer, no, because it's a contradiction to the idea of being a wife. Part of being a wife is, becoming a mother. So, because for your legacy, especially for his legacy, the reason he would choose you as a wife is because he's choosing you to be the mother of his children, right? He wants kids and he needs you for that. So that's part of the agreement of him loving you, taking care of you, protecting you, right? Financially, emotionally, spiritually, whatever you need, he will provide as long as you provide him what he needs in return, which is a legacy, right? Offsprings. So children's benefit both of y'all, right? Children's, for both of y'all. But ultimately, children is for the man, right? Because that's something because he can do anything, he can get anything, he can have anything. But children is still, one thing he can't have without a wife. So, since he would want that, he would want a legacy, he would want, to pass on his experiences, knowledge, his wealth, right, his resources to the next generation, right? He's going to need a wife, right? He's going to need a mother, right? He's going to need somebody to reproduce with. So that's what you bring to the table. And of course he brings the money, the protection, the resources, whatever you're lacking in. If you're not lacking in money and this, that, and the third, then that's great. That's cool. Then that just means he just brings more of that, right? Nothing wrong with that. Of course, he, should be bringing in some good genetics. You bringing in good genetics, of course. Y'all mixing out good genetics to make a better, stronger future, right? Better human beings. Raise them to be decent human beings. Don't just make them and just let them, go into the world and be like, all right, well, they'll figure out life. No, you're supposed to teach them how they're supposed to behave. You're supposed to teach them, traditions, right? Rules that y'all live by and govern by. It's one thing to teach them the rules of life, like, the laws in the country that you're in, but it's also important to teach them the rules of the family. That's what tradition is rules, right? Guiding principles, right? So that's the kind of stuff that you, as a wife, bring to the table, and your husband also brings that to the table. Y'all bring your culture, y'all bring, your knowledge and experience, y'all bring that to the table, bring that into the relationship, and pass it on to the children. So, that's why it would be a bad idea for a guy to get with a woman that is pro-choice. And when I mean by pro-choice, I'm not talking about the females that be like, oh, I believe that abortion should be legal. That way it's an option just in case. That's not the pro-choice type of female I'm referring to. I'm referring to the ones that think that, it's their right. It's a medical, it's a healthcare thing. It's a woman thing and all that extra nonsense, right? The idea of trying to make it seem like it's something they have to have. So then it's like, okay, then it just sounds like a power thing. It just sounds like it's just something you want to have as a right when it's not a right. If anything, it should just be something that's like common sense, as in if you got a baby in a illegal way, right? You got pregnant in an illegal way, then it makes sense legally anyway, right? Socially, morally, that you should be able to get an abortion in that situation. And a lot of pro-lifers agree with that. But to be able to just use it whenever you feel like it, no. Feelings are not to be trusted. Feelings are not the best indicator. It's not the best way to make decisions. Logic is the best way to make decisions. Logic is better for making decisions than feelings, because feelings tend to be negative. So by default, any decision you make based off of feelings is going to be the wrong decision. at least I'll say 9 out of 10 times it's going to be the wrong decision, making a decision based off of feelings. And this is where, where guys come in, because guys tend to be the logical one. So that's why guys need to be part of the decision making. And that's another thing. When it comes to the whole abortion thing, both parents need to be involved in the decision making. That's the other issue with, females out there wanting it to be a female only decision. And it's like, no. It took two to tango, right? It took two to make the baby, because they'll be the same ones complaining that, when somebody's like, well, you shouldn't have had sex, right? You got pregnant because you were having sex unprotected, blah, blah, blah. Putting the accountability and the responsibility on the female. And as soon as you say that, she's like, I didn't do this by myself. What about the guy? What about the guy? It's like, oh, man, I thought this was about your body, your choice, which means your responsibility, your fault. Which means you're the only one to be held accountable for this, right? I mean, it's your body, your choice, which means guys have nothing to do with this. So why are you bringing guys into the conversation, right? Into the what about guys situation, when you were talking about it was all on you. It's your choice, right? Since it's your choice, means guys can't have responsibility for something that was your choice. It's your choice, which means only you are responsible for it. Right? Common sense. That's the way it should be, right? Common sense. But like I said, the whole emotion thing, immediately when most of these females get emotional, they immediately go to the whole, what about the guy? He was there too, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but it's funny how you want to keep him out of the decision making. You want him to get blame. You gladly will want to include him when it comes to finger pointing, right? To pointing blame, but you want him out of it when it comes to making a decision. When it comes to, making a decision, deciding on something, and that makes no sense. But whatever. Anyway, so you see some of the issues that comes with the whole being pro-choice. It's like inherently, by default, women are pro-life, guys are pro-choice. But that's for a different topic. The thing is that you gotta understand that if you want to be a wife, having kids should be part of it. Now, can you be pro-choice, right? Whether it be the logical, reasonable pro-choice or the irrational, feminist version of pro-choice that I was just talking about. Could you be a wife? Like, yeah, you could be a wife, and that's the extent of your role. Usually that would just mean you're just a trophy wife. There's different types of wives. There's not just one specific archetype of a wife. There's different types. There's the trophy wife, obviously, right? There's the wife that's part of that's part of a harem, right? She's the wife, and then there's multiple girlfriends, right? That type of scenario. So there's different types. There's the professional wife, right? I already mentioned the trophy wife thing. Then there's the traditional wife, right? Then there's like the modern day wife version, where it's like trying to be the boss babe thing, where like it's like she's in charge, like she's the head of the household, she's the moneymaker. Basically, I'll say Oprah wife, the Oprah wife, where Oprah's in charge and her husband is just the husband of Oprah, right? That type of dynamic, as opposed to the other way around. So, like I said, there's a couple archetypes of wives, but the most common one, the original one anyway, was the traditional version, where your purpose is to be taken care of by your husband, financially, physically, and you are supposed to provide him with a legacy. You're supposed to provide him, with his, provide him, help with his urges, help him with his emotional, be his emotional support, be his, his motivation, his inspiration, be his, support in whatever he wants to do. Plus, of course, help him with reproduction of a legacy and help him raise the children in the way that he sees fit. You can have some influence on the kids, but the main influence is supposed to be coming from him. But that's, the traditional way. Obviously, we're in modern day times, and, we can, we can change the different aspects of traditional. Obviously, you can just, not call it traditional, just call it a modern marriage, and then work that way and create the, new rules and stuff. But it has to be mutually agreed upon by both husband and wife, right, on how their marriage is going to be, whether it's going to be traditional-ish or modern-ish, where there might be some open relationship stuff. Because I'd be hearing, stuff like, there's some females that would be okay with a guy having multiple females on the side besides her. Some females are okay with it, some females are not. Some females want the opposite, where they can have multiple guys, but he can't have multiple chicks. Or she wants to be a 50-50 type thing, where she could do what he does, right? Which is very childish type of mentality, but whatever. If it works for both of them, they both agree upon it, then that's fine. It's only a problem when they don't agree on it, right? When one wants it and the other one's like, no, I don't want that type of arrangement. So whatever, to each their own. I lean more towards the traditional route, but I am not against the harem route, the harem version, right? The Hugh Hefner style type of marriage. I'm not against it, but we'll see. But anyway, being the pro-choice wife means you're going to obviously be involved. Forgot what I was saying, but you definitely want to at least consider, obviously wanting to have children if you're going to be getting into the idea of marriage. Everybody is on their path, even though, this podcast is about being a wife, doesn't mean you have to be. Obviously it's a choice. I just believe that you should have the choice, right, to be a wife or not. The thing I noticed in feminism is they constantly pushing the idea of not being a wife, right, not, getting along with a man, right? So it went from, having the ability to have the option and the choice to either be a wife, but still, be able to have a career, for example, like at least be able to have a job outside of being a wife. If you can manage both, hey, more power to you. That's girl power right there. I'm not against it. I'm not against a wife, wanting to make money, or at least wanting to do something else, like, with her life and whatnot. No one's against that. It's just that when you choose that over being married, that's when it becomes a little bit problematic, because again, you have the right to choose whichever path you want. You just got to understand the consequences, right? You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can't, you could try. Not saying that you can't try. You could try to, do both, right? Be a wife and, be essentially independent, but it's just way more difficult. Because like I said, when you choose to be a wife, that's literally like the same thing as choosing to work for a company. Like if you work for Google, it don't make sense for you also try to work for let's say Microsoft, and also try to work for Apple, right? The competitors, or work for Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Oh well, I think they're the same company now. You get the point. Like, it makes no sense to work for both sides, right? It's like you can't have a husband and a boyfriend, right? You could try it, but ironically, right? I mean, logically, neither one will be okay with that, typically, and vice versa. Obviously, that applies to females as well. But the idea is, like, once you choose to do something, you choose to do something, right? You can't be the one that drives the car, but also the one that sits in the passenger side, right? Don't make sense. You can't be in two places at once, basically. So it's like, it's better to focus on one path. If you choose to be a wife, be the best at it. If you choose to be, strong, independent woman that don't need no man, then go that route. Even though, the concept of independent and don't need no man is a contradiction in itself, because we all know that's untrue. No one's independent unless you're, on an island by yourself, or you literally don't have the other gender as part of your daily routine, right? Can't say you're independent, you don't need no man, but you have garbage men, firefighters, your boss is a man, your coworkers you work with are men, and you probably rely on them. The person who sells you food or whatever, right? The list goes on of how many men that you need in order for you to live your life in the first place. Your landlord is a man, and the list goes on. Like that's more common. There's more men in position in society that allows society to exist in the first place, since men are the ones who created society. So it's not surprising that, because no man says that he don't need no man. That's stupid. We need each other. We know teamwork makes the dream. We work together as a team to make shit happen. Whenever something needs to be done, like, oh shit, this car flipped over and there's a kid in there and there's a woman in there. Come on, guys, let's flip this thing over. Not one guy's like, oh, I don't need no other men. I could flip this car over by myself. No, we're like, hey guys, let's get together. Let's move this thing. I mean, I've been in many situations where I had to get out of a vehicle with a whole bunch of dudes and push a vehicle. And a lot of times it was a female that was in the vehicle that needed the vehicle to be moved out of the road and moved to the side, right? And we helped them. I changed tires for females before. Strangers, you gotta understand, I'm just minding my own business, and and I did this even when I was young. So I had adult females asking me as a young man in my teens, I think I was 19 at the time, where one of these incidents happened. And this woman, she probably was in her 40s, asking me to change her tire for her. And it's like, this is odd, awkward, because she's an adult, and I consider myself, since I'm younger than her, consider myself a kid in the situation. But because I'm the male species and she's the female species, right? I had to help her, right? My mommy taught me well, right? My mommy taught me to be a good boy. So I helped her. And I'm not stupid, so of course I was capable of doing it. Since I was taught by my stepfathers how to do men's shit, like changing tires and stuff like that. So I had some experience, even if I don't own a car myself. So at the time, right? Obviously I was 19, but because the point is that I was asked for help, and I actually helped. Like I was actually able to do so. Oh, I was 19. Oh yeah, I did. Well, not only did I learn stuff from my stepdads, or stepdad, one in particular, where I learned most of my mechanical knowledge from, is also the fact that I also took auto body work in school, so I knew how to use a jack and whatnot. That's the thing, I had to jack up the car, and I had to, take the bolts off with the crossbar wrench, whatever it's called at the time, and, take the tire off, swap it out, blah, 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 the usual stuff, because this is the stuff that I did in my auto body class. So the knowledge I gained from high school, having shop class, was helpful when the lady needed my assistance. I had the experience and knowledge to do so. So just again, she was a grown-ass woman. That's her vehicle, right? You think she would know how to change her own tire, but that's for a different conversation. But anyway, to be like, oh, I don't need no man, it's like, well, I've seen many of strong, independent women that don't need no man have a habit of asking me to do a lot of stuff. Now, part of that don't need no man statement actually comes largely from the fact that it's like, don't need no single man, but not that you don't need a man at all, because these types of females that says I don't need no man typically have sons, brothers, guys in their friend zone, and all this stuff. They have guys that they can call upon and rely on to help them do stuff. I've had some females, who act all strong and independent, ask me to help them, with their car problems. And it's like, okay, you want me to help you, but you give off this whole independent, don't need no man type of personality, but you still need my help. You still need me to do manly things. And this chick in particular, because there's a specific scenario I was in, was literally like, oh, my daddy taught me this, that, up there about cars, blah, 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 blah. It's like, while I'm helping her fix, try to resolve her car issue, but she's trying to, let me know that she knows stuff about cars. And it's like, okay, that's cool. If your dad taught you stuff about cars, you should. If you're going to own a car, since this is your car, it would make sense you know how to fix it, how to deal with it. But clearly, you planning for your daddy to fix this after I deal with it. So I gotta help you with this car issue. Then you're gonna take it to your dad. He's gonna do his thing. And it's like, but you were trying to give off this whole like, you could do it yourself. It's like, if you could do it by yourself, then why don't you do it yourself? Why are you asking me for help? And then on top of that, I know you're just gonna take it to your dad. So this whole I don't need no man, it's just ignorant. But anyway, that's for another topic. The thing is like this whole idea of wanting to choose something is, I'm not against choosing stuff, but at the same time, there's just some stuff that shouldn't be a choice. You shouldn't be choosing if someone, live or dies, right? Like, you shouldn't choose someone dies. Like, that shouldn't be a common choice. That should be the last thing you want to choose is death, right? Especially for someone else. But anyway, but in general, I'm all in support of choosing your path of being in a relationship, being a wife or not. So I'm not telling you to be a wife. I'm just telling you, well, if you're going to be a wife, these are things that most guys expect. And most guys expect their wife to be more pro-life than pro-choice. Because, part of being a wife is, reproducing, among other things. I know I would disqualify a woman if she was pro-choice. If she's reasonable with it, like how I'm reasonable with it, if she's like, yeah, I'm okay with abortion if certain circumstances. I'm like, yeah, I agree with those circumstances. So we're all on the same page. So we're on the same page with the concept, like, yeah, abortion is okay under certain circumstances, but not okay in every circumstance. Then I can work with her, right? Because we're on the same page. But if she's the total opposite of like, no, abortion whenever she feels like it, like, okay, well, you have the right to believe that. You have the right to feel that way. But what you don't have the right to is being with me. That is up to me. I get to choose that. And I choose no. So I'm more partial to pro-life females. So women who are pro-life, have top priority in my eyes. But again, like I was saying earlier, was like, you could be pro-choice and be a wife. It just, your suitors, right? Your options of guys you can be a wife to would be less than if you were pro-life. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of guys nowadays, especially guys who are putting time and effort to be something of value, right? Socially, financially, for the opposite sex, right? Trying to be worthy of, marriage and whatnot. These guys are increasing their standards. They want more than just, a chick that's hot. The thing is, that has not been taken off the table, right? That's still a requirement. You still have to be hot to them, not hot in general to the world. A guy doesn't want a chick on average that every guy wants, right? Females are the opposite. Females want a guy that every female wants because it makes her feel special when she has something that's desirable, that everybody wants. They do the same thing when it comes to clothes, cars, and stuff like that. That's why some females want expensive engagement rings, even though they don't really deserve it most of the time. And then on top of that, it's like, what's the point? It's an engagement ring. It's not a wedding band. It's the engagement ring. That should be cheap. One, it should be cheaper than the wedding bands. It shouldn't cost more than the wedding bands themselves. So again, it's just an engagement ring. Shit, with that type of situation, I personally would just skip the engagement ring scenario. I was like, oh, nope, no engagement ring. We're just gonna get married and you'll get the wedding band. We're not doing no engagement ring if you're gonna over exaggerate on how important it has to be for it to be expensive, or how it's supposed to look. Like, if you're gonna make a big deal about the engagement ring, I'd rather just skip it, because whatever ring I give you as an engagement ring, it's the thought that counts, right? It's the fact that I'm choosing you to be my wife. That's more valuable, more important than the ring itself. The ring is just a small symbol, right? Something you can wear, that you can show, like, hey, I'm engaged, and that's it, and leave it at that. It's not something for you to flex. The fact that you were chosen to be married, to be a wife, is already the flex. You don't need jewelry, materialistic things to be, the flex. But that's, again, for another conversation about materialism. But yeah, I do, still have hope for the future, of the human race. To me, when I hear pro-choice, it just gives me this whole like, you don't care about the future of the human race. You have a negative view of life, which is why you're pro-choice and not pro-life. Because realistically, there should not be the term pro-choice or pro-life, right? Realistically, it should just be common sense. Common sense is, you don't want kids, you just don't get pregnant. And there's tons of ways to not get pregnant. Not having sex is one way. One of the easiest ways, ironically. But a lot of people like to make it seem like that's hard to do, to not have sex, even though that's easy to do. Because again, we have many different ways to prevent pregnancies. We even have ways to prevent you having sex with somebody. You know what I mean? We have ways to prevent that, right? Porn is an option. Dildos is an option, right? Your own fingers is an option. You have options outside of just, oh no, I gotta have sex. Well, then you gotta have kids. That's just how that works. This whole childish mentality that you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have sex but not get pregnant. No. It doesn't work that way. You can't do something that's meant for the purpose of reproduction and then be like, no, I want to do what I want to do with it. I want to change the rules. Oh, you can't be changing the rules of reality. That's not how it works. This is why most people fail at it, right? It's like, oh, I can have sex and not get pregnant, but then suddenly get pregnant. Like, damn, how did I get pregnant? You had sex, that's how. You might think that you can have sex without getting pregnant, but that's not how the world works, right? I've seen it many, many times on like TV shows and stuff like that, like the Maury Show, Jerry Springer, stuff like that. Just somebody literally talking about like, but I only had sex with them like one time. It only takes one time to get pregnant. And he probably had sex without a condom, which drastically increases the chances you're going to get pregnant. That's how sex works. The purpose of sex is for pregnancy to happen. So that's why when you have sex and pregnancy doesn't happen, that means you failed to reproduce. Because again, sex is for reproduction. It's not for fun. It's definitely not to not get pregnant. Pregnancy is what's supposed to happen after sex. So that's why when sex doesn't happen, that's where you want to, find what works best for you, figure out, this is the importance of getting to vet people. It is kind of sad to see that society isn't the same as it used to be. Like, you think a lot of the good stuff of the past would transfer over to the present. That's where, parenting, comes in. As parents, you're supposed to teach kids, the important stuff they need to learn from the past, from history. You're supposed to teach them your family history, right? Your personal history. You're supposed to teach kids about your childhood, so that way it becomes part of their childhood, right? So they understand how you grew up, why you are the way you are, and then that helps them figure out, right, and understand who they are, because they understand that they are your offspring, right? That they are an extension of you, and you're supposed to extend yourself through your children, right? If there's things in your life you wanted to do but couldn't achieve it because of certain reasons for it. Let's say you wanted to be a basketball player, but you're too short, so you couldn't, right? Even though you tried, it didn't work out. Well, if you have an offspring that's tall enough to play basketball, right, then you could at least show them about basketball, share to them your dream and stuff like that of being a basketball player and all that stuff. And if they choose that they want to fulfill that dream in your place, and so be it, right? It's still their choice. It's different if you kind of force it on them and make it where like that's their purpose in life, is to fulfill your dream, right? That's when it's the extreme. Just like feminism, going to the extreme route of, we want to do what men do. And it's like, it's okay if you want to do the things we're doing, be involved in the stuff we're involved in, like what we like, that's fine. It's another thing when you're trying to be an equal. It's like, oh no, that just means you want to be a competitor. We're not interested in competition unless it's among men, right? But we compete amongst each other to impress the females, right? To impress women. We don't want to compete with women, right? Women are supposed to be part of our team, not supposed to be on the right? Not supposed to be on the opposite side, not supposed to be against us. It's not supposed to be men versus women, right? Male versus female, boys versus girls. We're supposed to be on the same team, right? Real equality is when we're working together as a team. I bring my strengths, you bring yours. That's equality, real equality, the way equality is supposed to be. You bring in what you bring in, I bring what I bring in. We put it together, and it turns out into 100%. Let's say I bring in 70% into the relationship, and you bring in 30%. All right, your 30% completes my 70%. My 70% completes your 30%. Now we're 100%. We're complete now. I complete you, you complete me. That's the idea. Right? That's why it's weird when you have females who go out the way to make so much money that they deliberately make it where it's hard for a guy, a good guy, a guy who's great for her, to come along and, complete her in a way, because she's going to use the fact that she has money as a reason to disqualify him. Like, well, I make this much, and if you don't make this much, you can't be with me. It's like, well, damn. He wouldn't do that to you. He wouldn't be like, oh, I make this much, you can't be with me. Like, no, he'd be like, I make this much, do you want to be with me? I'm a millionaire. Do you want to be with a millionaire? Or I make 100K a year. You want to be with me? Or I only make 50K a year. You want to be with me? Like, that's the difference between guys and gals, especially when it comes to like resources, when it comes to what they bring to the table. A guy is looking to share what he brings to the table. Females nowadays think they are the table, or they own the table, or that they have their own table. It's like, yeah, you have your own table over there halfway across the restaurant all by yourself and being lonely. I'm over here, having different ladies come through and, partake in what's on my table. They get to enjoy and share what's on my table. Guys are inherently not selfish. Females are inherently selfish, so it's not surprising that most females nowadays are way more selfish than the women of the past, right? women in the past were less selfish, but they were still selfish, right? Which is okay, because that's the symbiotic relationship. Guys give, females supposed to take. That's why biologically, that's how we function. I'm the pitcher, she's the catcher, right? Right? I penetrate her, not the other way around. That's how we function. That's literally the science, the biology behind it. But anyway, we need to, what's ironic is that, certain functions like marriage and stuff like that stems from biology, right? Stems from the need for people to get together, reproduce, right? To work together as a team, to agree to not only make children, but to raise them, because they're the society's next generation, right? They're the next generation of humans. So it's very important to make sure you raise them right, you raise them well, and you make sure that they thrive and survive. A lot of people got this whole individuality mentality. They forget that we live in a society, and in a society, you are part of it. The reason why the world works, the reason why you have a job, is because you're part of the society. You're part of that system that functions, right? This whole like, oh, I don't need no man. It's like, yes, you do. You need the garbage man, the mailman, the policeman. You need them because they're doing their part in society, and you're supposed to do your part in society. This is how we get everything to work. You too. A store can't work unless you have, the people who put the stuff on the shelves, right? The stock people, the register people who use the register and and put the stuff in the bags, right? The security to protect the building, and people in case something happens, the managers to manage the employees, right? And the list goes on of the people that are necessary in order for these things to happen, right? The mechanic exists in case your car doesn't work. The mechanic will fix it. If your phone doesn't work, you go to the place you bought the phone and they could repair it, or some other place can repair your phone, right? And the list goes on of how we need each other, because society only functions because we work together, because we need each other. If we don't have each other, then we have nothing, literally nothing. I keep seeing this stuff online of like people acting like, oh man, can't wait until society crumbles or whatnot. I want my freedom, blah 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 blah. The Matrix, this blah blah blah. All this nonsense. It's like none of y'all can't handle freedom. None of y'all understand what freedom really is. True freedom, none of y'all can handle it. This is why we live in a society, because true freedom, which was the original freedom that humans had, is like you existed, right? You were born, you grew, you were taken care of for a while, but once you were capable of feeding yourself, moving, right, on your own, you were expected to go and survive on your own. That's true freedom, where you're not relying on anyone anymore. You're relying on yourself. That's true freedom. And no one in modern day society, can be free. Most of the people that says they want freedom and, individuality, this and that, they're saying that because they're living in a society. They think they're free because they have a job, because they have money, because they have an apartment, a car, gym membership, smartphone. It's like, you're not free. You're dependent on all these things. You're part of the system, part of the matrix. Society is the matrix. Society is a man-made thing. It's a creation of the human race. Humans agreeing and deciding to work together so that way everybody can have something. Because if we don't work together, then everybody has barely nothing. Then we all have to fight each other just to have something. Right? Think about it. Instead of me beating somebody up and taking their food so that way I can have food, I instead give them money. I buy the food off of them, which in turn they can use that money to buy food off of somebody else. We literally created money so that way we don't do the free, primitive thing and just take shit from one another. Right? That's literally what money is for. It's a way for us to interact with one another, for us to act civil, for us to act humane, to act decent to one another. It's like, here's money, give me this in return. Hey, my house is dirty, clean my house and I give you money, right? Ain't nobody interested in cleaning somebody else's house, but for the right price they would. Think about it. That's what makes money valuable, in that regards, that we make it valuable. We make it where it's like, yeah, this equals that. This means that you cleaning my house, it's worth your time, it's worth you doing it. But if we went to a free society, nobody's going to do shit for nobody, because most people are going to be selfish anyway. They're not going to do shit for someone else. So money is literally the glue that binds us as a society. So money is the central focus of society. Us agreeing to work with one another through money. It's one of the best forms of agreement, one of the best forms of trust that we have. We literally man-made trust. We man-made so-called equality, which ironically becomes inequality in certain situations. Because you got people with a lot of money and a lot of people with no money. And you see the inequality there. And the irony is that money is meant to be given to someone else, especially someone who doesn't have money. You're supposed to give them money in return for something else, obviously. But, you know, I'm the type of person that when I see somebody doesn't have money, right, and there's an opportunity to get money, I let them know, like, hey, here's an opportunity for you to get money. I'm not going to be greedy and be like, oh shit, an opportunity to get money, let me go get it myself, even though I already have money. I've been in a scenario where I literally was walking, saw a $100 bill on the floor. I saw it, I looked at it, and I ignored it, and I was walking away. But then I stopped and thought, like, I mean, that's a $100 bill. I looked back at it for a couple seconds, and I was like, man, I don't need it, and I just walked away. I got thousands of dollars. Why would I need 100, right? The thing is, I don't need it. I could have been greedy and took it, of course, but I don't need it. I was thinking like, nah, I'll leave it there. Somebody else will find it, and they probably need it. So I'm not going to be selfish. I'm not going to be an asshole. I don't need it. See, it'd be different if I need it. I've been in scenarios where I'm like, damn, I'm hungry, I need money, and I find money. You know, I've had blessed moments where, you know, I needed money, and I literally found it on the floor when I needed it, right? So I was just thinking back to that. So it's like, yeah, I don't need the money, so I'm not going to grab it. I'll just leave it there for the next person who might really need it. I've been in a scenario where some homeless people asked me for some money. I said, sorry, no, I can't help you. And not too far from me, couple, you know, like maybe like a foot away from me, was like a $5 bill. And, you know, I caught the person's attention. I was like, hey, look. They looked over and they hesitated to even, you know, get the money, and I just walked away. But I know I heard them immediately move towards the money after I walked away. So that was a good thing, you know, for them to, you know, get the money, because I don't need it. But it was just ironic that the money was there, and it's like, damn, if only they looked around, they would find it, you know. If they just look around, because, you know, blessings are everywhere sometimes, and that happens to me a lot. Like, I'll be like, man, I wish I had some money. Like, man, like, let's say I need a nickel. Like, damn, I need a nickel. So I would literally go outside and walk around in my neighborhood, see if I find a nickel. I mean, that was back in the day. I don't do that anymore. But, you know, that's just an idea. I mean, I used to look in the cushions, of the couches at home back in the day in my mom's house. I would look in the cushions, see if I could find some change. And yeah, I would find some change. I'm like, yeah, found me $1 worth of change. Woohoo! I can buy me a whole bunch of junk food with that. yeah, back in them days, right, when you could. So that was cool. But yeah, anyway, this was long enough. You get the point that you should, you know, try to be more open. You know, you do you. Not telling you not to be pro-choice. That's your decision, right? That's your choice to choose that path. I'm just saying that, you know, it might not be. It's just there's every action has an opposite equal reaction, right? You know, certain decisions come with certain, you know, pros and cons. That's what I'm trying to say. So choose your destiny, and the main thing I want is just you accept accountability, right? You accept the consequences of your decisions. If you choose to be single, you gotta accept that. You gotta accept what comes with that. If you choose to be a wife, you gotta accept what comes with that. Women of the past did it, right? You could do it too.